This is your number 34, chapter 7, final checkpoint for you to show what you know all about chapter 7. So make sure you have your note card or, your cheat sheet to be prepared and help you answer. Number 1, what precedent did George Washington establish concerning advisors to the president? Discourage the formation of political parties, encourage the United States to remain neutral, establish a 2-term presidency, establish the first cabinet. If you need to, pause and then continue. Number 2, who was the first president of the United States? John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson. Pause, answer, then continue. Number 3, how did Hamilton compromise with Jefferson to move the capital to Washington, D.C.? Jefferson agreed to pay the soldiers that fought in the Revolutionary War. Southern states agreed to help pay the national debt. Southern states agreed to pay for Washington, D.C. to be built. The climate was better in Washington, D.C. Pause, answer, then continue. Number 4, what is the Neutrality Proclamation that was a key element of George Washington's foreign policy? A proclamation that the U.S. would not help Spain in their war. A proclamation that the U.S. would not help England or France in their war. A proclamation that the U.S. would help England in their war. Pause, answer, then continue. Number 5, which describes the result of the Whiskey Rebellion? It showed the federal government's authority, is strengthened the power of the states. That should say it. It strengthened the power of the states. It weakened the federal government's authority. It weakened the U.S. Army. Pause, answer, then continue. Select 2. Who was a member of the Federalist Party? There's 2 different Federalists in here. Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. Select the 2 who are Federalists. Number 7. Select 2. Who was a member of the Democratic Republican Party? Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. Who are the 2 who are part of the Democratic Republican Party? Number 8. Who was the First Lady of the United States? Martha Washington, Abigail Adams, Judith Sargent Murray, Dolly Madison. Number 9. Where was the first capital of the United States? New York City, New York, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Boston, Massachusetts, Washington, D.C. Number 10. Why did Hamilton want a national bank? Hint: Hamilton is all about the dollar signs. To deposit money and make loans, to fund the United States military, to pay back bonds, or to protect trade and manufacturing. Number 11. What was the purpose of the Judiciary Act of 1789? It created the U.S. Constitution. It created 3 levels of federal courts, including the Supreme Court. It created 2 houses of Congress. It got rid of 3 levels of federal courts. Number 12. How did the Democratic Republicans feel about the power of the federal government? They did want a federal government. They wanted a equal power between states and federal government. They wanted a weak federal government. They wanted a strong federal government. Number 13. How did the Federalists feel about the power of the federal government? They did want a federal government. They wanted equal power between states and federal government. They wanted a weak federal government. They wanted a strong federal government. Number 14. Why did Americans dislike the Alien and Sedition Acts? It violated the Fourth Amendment. Americans actually really like the Alien and Sedition Acts. It violated the First Amendment. It gave the executive branch too much power. Number 15. What was the XYZ affair? French agents, X, Y, and Z, asked for a bribe from the United States to sign a peace treaty with France. French people, X, Y, and Z, overthrew their monarchy because they wanted a democracy. Laws aimed at protecting the government from sedition. war between the United States and France that became an international affair. Number 16. Why were the Alien and Sedition Acts unpopular? They were unconstitutional and a misuse of federal power. They were constitutional and a misuse of federal power. They were unconstitutional and a misuse of state power. Number 17. What was Thomas Jefferson's views on the national bank? There's two that apply. He believed in strict construction to make sure the federal government only did the Constitution, what the Constitution specifically states. He believed in loose construction to make sure the federal government only did what the Constitution specifically states. So one of these is correct. He thought the idea of a national bank gave too much power to the federal government. He thought that the idea of a national bank gave too much power to the state government. So notice the difference. One is strict, one is loose. Which one is Thomas Jefferson? And then notice here, which one is he talking about? That the national bank gives too much to federal or too much to state. So choose that one as well. Number 18. What was Alexander Hamilton's views on the national bank? He wanted to create the first national bank that would give loans to people and businesses in hopes to stabilize the economy. He wanted to create the first national bank that would give loans to people and farmers in hopes to stabilize the economy. So remember, Hamilton, is he all about businesses or all about farmers? Choose one of those. Then you have, he believed in loose construction to allow the federal government wiggle room to do what is reasonably needed that the Constitution does, not specifically say it cannot be done. He believed in strict construction to allow the federal government wiggle room to do what is reasonably needed that the Constitution does not specifically say cannot be done. So one of these is the correct term for loose, one of these is the incorrect term for loose or strict. So make sure that you're figuring out which one is the correct one for Hamilton. Number 19. What advice did Washington give the nation in his farewell address about choosing sides with other countries? He advised that with the structure of our government comes public opinions, which means people should be enlightened with information and have general institutions of knowledge. He advised not to form permanent ties with other countries because choosing sides can put the United States into positions of going into war. He advised that the nation should work out their differences and protect their independence. He advised that the future generations needed to be protected from debt, so the government should try not to borrow any money. He advised that the political unity is one of the keys to national success, so the disagreements between political parties should be fixed because they only weaken the government. So think about which one of these is talking about issues with other countries.